welcome to Daft Souls, episode number, I think it's 11. We've been out of the loop. Obviously, we didn't have an episode last week because everyone had jetted off to E3, but this time, apparently not everyone's in E3, and all the best people are right here. And those best people are...
Steve Hogarty. Hello. I wasn't at E3 last week, but you didn't invite me along. But that's okay. I forgive you.
Well, there wasn't a podcast, so I didn't invite you because I'm sure don't do this to me, Steve. This is just embarrassing. Sorry. You're embarrassing me.
Put you on the spot,
and you're embarrassing Brendan Caldwell.
Yeah, I'm here as well. I wasn't at E3 because I am allergic to Californians, and I can't go there because there's too many there.
My name's Quentin Smith, and I am also allergic to hype. And if I'm exposed to hype, I swell up like the woman from Charlie, and I swell up like hype.
Like a hype balloon.
Wow, exactly. And I float off into the sky, never to be seen.
I can't wait for the hype balloon to come out.
Neither can I. It's going to be better than the last one.
I want to see where your Charlie's Angels met.
Oh, I was going to say Charlie in the Chocolate Factory.
Charlie in the Chocolate Factory.
Because the girl who grows to the size of a berry and is rolled away to get destroyed.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
It is.
It was really grim, that film, I thought. I liked it, but it was very, very dark.
What genre would a Charlie in the Chocolate Factory game be? It'd be a
puzzle game.
It would be one of those find the object in the room
It would.
Like a Crimson Room kind of game.
Yeah, but
let's not ask what it would be, what it should be, you know?
It would be like a Sierra point-and-click adventure where things you can actually click on something, like click on a squirrel to be too greedy. And
it's a point-and-click game where you can't click on anything or you lose.
Yeah, because you can die in the Sierra ones, can't you?
Yeah, I guess. I would prefer if nothing was ever like those games ever again. But that is just me.
Also, it wouldn't work as a kind of like point-and-click adventure game because a lot of that involves going back and forth between rooms.
You know what it should be?
And they're quite strict about the tour and that, I think, because of the number of children that die.
I think E3 would be a platformer, but you get to the first jump and it's just an endless pit that you cannot cross. And that's it. That's all that E3 is.
Yeah. Oh, okay. We're talking about. We were talking about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, I'm sorry. What would Charlie and Chocolate? Yeah.
I think it'd be like a Kairosoft game where you could make rooms and they would make chocolate, and then you'd watch numbers go up, and then you'd abruptly be told that.
I think actually the closest we've ever had to a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory game is probably Cookie Clicker. In the fact that that's a game which is just about making lots of chocolate, but then quickly becomes a bit sinister and potentially incredibly, incredibly dark. That game really fucked me up.
Yes.
And I do wonder if that was the intention of Cookie Clicker, in that they knew that by the point at which you realised that what you were doing had any story, like any meaningful story or any meaningful context.
At first came across as satirising capitalism, which is quite a basic theme that they carried through to completion. But then it got really dark and strange, and when you had grannies cooking you cookies, but to make the grannies more productive, you had to start pulling in grannies from other dimensions.
Yes.
But they weren't quite right.
Yes. Yes, like the grannies would, and then it became this weird thing. I mean, basically this is I feel dumb to say this, but this is Cookie Clicker spoilers.
It really actually is, I'm sorry.
But but you know, just to warn people, but basically it kind of has this amazing overarching plot in the fact that you end up, the grannies are the first thing you can build, because the idea is you can click on the cookie. And
what a wonderful sentence that is by itself, by the way.
Yeah, the first thing you can build are the grannies after point clickers, because at first you just click on it and it's like, oh, then you can buy a pointer that will click on the
second cursor to click on it for you.
And it means that every minute that will do one click. And that's not a lot, but you kind of think, well, you get 20 of them and you're like, 20 clicks, and you carry on clicking away. And then it gets to the point where you start building grannies, and then it escalates in the same way that all video games do. You build grannies, then you build like a cookie farm and a cookie factory, and they get increasingly ridiculous. But then it becomes this thing of the grannies are useless for a lot of the game because they don't make many cookies compared to like your antimatter cookie.
Yeah, you have like the antimatter cookie engines who are pulling in antimatter from the edge of the universe to create cookies at about 1 million cookies per second. But meanwhile, you have your grannies who are still making like 1,500 cookies per second, which is like infinitesimally just tiny amount of cookies.
It's ridiculous.
But they become a really crucial part.
I'm just gonna step back here and say I have no idea what you guys are talking about. You could be making this up. Like I
sorry, Brendan's on quite a lot of medication.
But you guys must have played Candy Box as well. The precursor.
Very similar to Candy Box.
Well, of course.
Oh, okay. If you know what that is, then
is it?
Well, it's a very similar. Numbers go up, and then you can get things to increase the numbers. But I liked how Candy Box was more open about the fact that it had secrets. It was especially the second game, which was just bananas, and you had a whole town, and you had quests, and you could explore and get different items and fight.
Well, no, what I loved about it was the fact that you were drawn into Cookie Clicker because you thought this is bollocks, right? But then you thought, well, I'll play around with it for a minute, and then you kind of think, well, I want to see what's next. And then when you get to the point where you are building like the top thing, when you unlock that final bit of space on the little bar of all the things you can unlock, it's kind of hooked into your brain. Like there's something nice about it, and now it's like it's embedded.
It really does pull the sheet off. Like very basic game mechanics. Like these are progress bars going up.
Yes.
And it's like it's mainlining this sense of progression.
And it still engages you.
And it still engages you. And that's what sickens you when you play it. I know, I can see, it's so apparent how the game is playing me. But I still love it. I still enjoy seeing the cookies going up and making billions of cookies.
That's why it's beautiful when it gets to the point where suddenly the army of grandmas you suddenly have the option to like start. Towards the end of the game, you get upgrades that cost a lot of cookies, but a lot of the upgrades towards the end of the game start to be to do with the grandmas. Like you get interdimensional grandmas, augmented grandmas, mutant grandmas, and they keep saying like, all the descriptions keep saying like, oh, you don't know what the effects of this are, but it will increase your cookie. And then it gets to the point where you realize that like your grandmas are producing like way more cookies than like anything else. Like they've gone from being useless to being insane. And then there's a point
the background slowly fades from being a beautiful landscape of cookie farmland to being this sort of amorphous fleshy blob of grandmas and cookies.
That's the thing. It gets really dark in the fact that basically it becomes this thing of suddenly like when you get towards the end game and you've got loads of grandmas, it's suddenly the fun like almost theme park style ticker tape that comes up throughout most of the game going, oh, there's so many cookies now. There's more cookies, enough cookies to fill Europe. There's enough cookies to fill the ocean. There are more cookies than trees and all this. And then towards the end, it's just like grandmas are disappearing. Elderly relatives are disappearing. Everyone's worried. And then suddenly it's like, where are all the grandmas going? And it's because you are like hiring all of the grandmas. And then the picture in the background that was previously loads of cookies turns to loads of grandmas. And then there's this bit where basically you can choose, I can't remember what it is, but it's vague enough that it's lovely. It's vague enough that it's like, this is cool. But it's basically, you realize you're signing some sort of demonic pact.
It's a grandma singularity.
Yes, that's oh my God.
They basically command the universe from a single cookie production center.
Yeah, I'm so sorry I didn't play this.
And then, well, the thing is, it's a huge waste of time. It's only the sort of game that you can play if you're fully employed.
Well, isn't everything is a waste of time?
Well, I tell you what. So I think I talked about this on the Ghost Cast, but did any of you play A Dark Room? Which is I
think you talked about it on the podcast, I think.
Was it?
I think it was a proper podcast.
Right, but it's the ability to turn these mechanics of numbers going up and managing a tribe and doing these same twists that you guys are talking about of, oh, I'll just increase this number, and then putting dark spins on it to do with, oh, I'll get my tribe to do this over and over, and eventually the game's like, it pops up with a message saying you don't really see them as tribesmen anymore. And when you go to click on the button that lets you manage a tribesman, it just reads slaves. And it does, but A Dark Room is really good for stuff like this. Super minimal stuff to do with keeping a fire going and running a tribe. But as daft as Cookie Clicker is, Daft Room tries to do the same thing and make it poignant. So it's worth playing, I think, if people are interested in Cookie Clicker. Then
do you know like who do you guys know who the creators of these games are? Because I would be interested to know if any of them had worked for like Playfish or Zynga or anything like that.
I think A Dark Room, it was a developer it was a single developer, and I can't remember their name, but I don't know if they'd worked in the commercial space before.
What's amazing is that I don't cheat at games very often. That's not a thing that interests me at all. But Cookie Clicker, I downloaded a JavaScript thing that automatically clicks on the cookie for you.
Wow.
Like I became so addicted to seeing those numbers go up. I just mainlined.
Wow.
I just got so obsessed by it.
I think the thing that I wonder if it was intentional was just the fact that like by the time I realised how dark it was getting, I was already too addicted and I couldn't stop. And it was knowing that clicking, because the thing is, the upgrades get so expensive. It's like, it gets someone with like 1.2 billion cookies for next upgrade. And then when you get the option of the Grandma Singularity, it costs nothing. It's a free upgrade, and it will increase your cookie production by a huge amount. But then I think it just says there is no going back, or something like there may be no going back.
So I've played it a lot.
I played it a lot as well.
You can go back, and the differences between this is much debated in the Cookie Clicker forum whether or not it's more beneficial to be part of the Grandma Nexus or
Oh my god!
Oh my god, you were really lost, weren't you?
or to be free of the Grandma tyranny. And I think it depends. If you are willing to sit at your computer and click on the dark cookies that pop up, there are some dark cookies that appear on your screen. You can click on them and you get added bonuses. If you sit around and wait for those to show up, then absolutely Grandma Nexus is the way to go. If you're not willing to sit around watching cookies go up like some sort of idiot, then by all means, don't opt into the Grandma Nexus.
And that's Steve's Cookie Clicker Tips.
Wow.
.com.
This has gone into like Cookie Clicker propaganda territory.
I just found myself so weirded out by the fact that I was so genuinely very disturbed by, because the image that it blends into it turns from an image of grandmas very gently blends into these like nightmarish.
It's like a fleshy grandma. It's just something out of Doom.
But you don't notice it. It's very gentle. It goes from pictures of grandmas to this. So at first you just start to go, the grandmas look a bit unwell or something, and then suddenly it's like they look really weird. Then it's like, oh my god, it's horrible. And the only way to make it go away is to pay the Grand Matriarch.
The Grand Matriarch.
Where the fuck did this game come from? Can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah, it's fine.
That is one of my favourite tricks for games to pull, where they take something that you are deeply familiar with, perhaps part of the user interface, and change it. And I won't spoil what game it is in case people stumble across it. But there is a game where you have a map that you're constantly at. You press M on the keyboard, that's a clue. And then it brings up a map. But about 3/4 of the way through the game, you press M to bring up the map, and you're presented with a sacrificial diagram of a boar. And you realise that all different locations in the game map to different parts of the boar. So that city you go to where the country's ruled from is the head of the boar and all this stuff. But the game gives no fanfare. It just brings you go, oh, I'd like my map. And it goes, okay, here's a picture of an animal.
So good.
And you are just stunned by it. It's a nice trick.
Breaking the rules, I think, is actually like, I mean, I think it was The Walking Dead, the first series, that amazingly. There was a point at which, like, you quite early on, it sort of snapped you out of a conversation mid-conversation at the point at which you were supposed to be making a choice.
In the second part, yeah.
It was just suddenly like, you're like, oh, what choice do I choose? And then something happened, and it just breaking the comfort zone. It's almost like, I mean, I saw somebody actually point out a really smart idea. Somebody, I think on Twitter, was talking about Dark Souls 2 and about how it like almost felt like it recycled too many of the same tricks. It's like, wouldn't it have been cool if at some point you'd been just about to go through a boss door and the boss had come out? Like just something like that, because you're so familiarised with the system of, here's a big white fog door, you go up to it when you're ready.
It's annoying because like even as far back as Resi 2, they knew to do that to fuck with your expectations. Like when you go to open one of those doors and you open one of the doors, and instead of just being in the next area, these two zombies come at you at one point. Like even as far back as then, they know that.
It seems weird that like gaming conventions now have become like so embedded that people just like use them because of familiarity, when they don't realise that almost like when things are that embedded, that's a chance to start really fucking with.
Yeah, I'm saying though, if everyone started fucking with convention, then we just wouldn't know what to expect, and there would be no convention to fuck with.
Steve, we burn the codes, we smash the system. We'll leave when everything.
It can't all be ironic. Someone has to maintain the status quo.
Well, I didn't play it, but I mean that's what I hope was the big problem with bloody what's called Blood Dragon, and the fact that it was like tutorials, and then was like, here's the tutorial. It sort of did that thing of taking the piss out of games, and then did all that stuff as well.
The best gag for that has got to be Portal 2, where it's like press A to take your gun out, and you press A and you jump, and you
Portal games are always really good at just messing your expectations and just saying, hey, you're going to do this, and then
come to think of it, that was what Portal 2 did. You expected Portal, and it did its best to jink away constantly,
but also just enough for someone who doesn't even play games very often. I think people who don't even play games very often, to repeat myself, they would say press A to do this thing, and they do it and something else happens. Even they would get the joke that the thing hasn't happened that the game said would happen. So whereas stuff like Woods or Cookie Clicker and all of those games that we're talking about rely on a deep understanding of game mechanics.
Yes.
Even like Portal, one of the reasons why it's one of the greatest games ever made is because it does turn on its head game conventions that people who don't play games very often still understand.
It's
Absolutely. And actually, it's on my list. It's a little question for you, actually. I mean, my list, I often have this now because I'm a sort of increasingly regarded as being an adult in the world. I have conversations with people who don't really play games very often.
Are you going to say it's on your list of games to play?
No. When I meet people...
You say, what games should I be playing?
Yeah, when I meet people who don't play games very often, maybe they play a bit, but they like games, or people who love games but they haven't played them in years, and they go, oh, what game should I play? And I always say that I think the 3 games I say people should play are Portal 2, Red Dead Redemption,
and Dota 2.
No. Yeah, honestly, mate, you just got to play for 800 hours. And it'll just click. I don't know. I can't remember what the third one is, actually.
Oh no, did I remove your train of thought?
No, it doesn't matter what the third one is. It may well actually be Dark Souls, just because of the fact that
you must have met people who say, "Oh, I couldn't get into Dark Souls." You don't want that for people.
Well, no. But I honestly think, and I've said this before.
New Super Mario Brothers on the Wii U. That's the one.
Yeah, sure. I thought you were being...
Yeah, give him
candid. Yeah, me too. I tell you what, I played thanks to our old friend Brendan here recently. Is Brothers, which actually
the thing is, Brothers is really, really like I really like it, and I think it's really well crafted. But I don't think if you gave that to somebody who has not really played that many games, they won't appreciate it as much.
Maybe not.
I just feel like
That's the thing is, I'm not saying that. You see, that's the thing is, what I'm saying is people who love games but don't have time to play them that much, right?
Well, see, this is why...
And that's why I recommend Dark Souls, is because actually a lot of the time there's these weird situations where people who used to play games a lot but haven't actually get more out of Dark Souls than people who play a lot of games. Like, there are loads of people I know who don't play games who just got so into that.
Yeah, I don't know. It just feels like...
almost like it's like a weird...
Yeah, but I know so many people who play games a lot, and even they go, oh, I've got Dark Souls, I only got this much, I only got this far into it, I'm not really...
But I honestly think people who play games a lot, I think people who play games a lot have a harder time getting into it than people who don't play games as much.
You know what's funny? My friend had a Chinese landlady, and she was kind of interested in the idea that he had a PS3, and Demon's Souls had just come out, and she was like, I'm not going to do an accent because that would be awful. Yes. But she said, what are you playing? And he would say, oh, it's this game called Demon's Souls. And he came back from work, and he was working night shifts at a travel lodge. Still love you, Chris. And he came back from work one day, and he said, and he saw her. She was playing Demon's Souls. This girl who hadn't played a game in years had played, and she was playing it. She got a tower shield, and she'd got a spear, and she'd found out that in Demons, if you hold block, you can poke through the shield. And God knows how far she got in, but she was like a dog with her teeth just sunk into it. She latched onto it. I still don't know if I disagree with you, but that is certainly evidence that backs up your idea.
I just feel like
it's weird.
I used to love playing action RPGs a lot, and I still do, but I found that one of the things I like about them is almost in familiarity, and it's like, there's something warming about it. It's like a sausage and mash sort of thing, but it's kind of like, you know how to play them, you know how to do them, and it's something like going through the motions. And I think what fucks people over with something like that is the fact that you have an understanding of how you expect it to go, and when you keep getting killed, that's an annoyance, because that's not what happens. So you go, you kill the monsters, you move on, you meet new monsters. Sometimes, like, the biggest challenge you'll have in most action RPGs is, I don't know how to kill this monster. Oh, I have to knock its shield off or something. Like, it's something like you don't usually get killed by them. You'll just have a moment of going, how do I kill this guy? Oh, like this.
I guess it's interesting in that it's a game with no real answers. Or
it's
you're able to find your own path.
It's more the fact that it's like it ignored previous tropes, and it actually invented its own system. Sometimes the point in ways which were irritatingly obtuse and obscure, but at the same time, it didn't do the classic thing of being like, I mean, there's a classic thing, like, simple things like when you meet those little crystal walking guys, like in any other RPG, you'd be like, oh, it's a nice crystal thing, I need a fire weapon. Whereas actually, it's just like, no, it's just a fucking...
Yeah, fire weapons work against ice, not crystal.
No, that's the thing.
Yeah, but you would have looked at it and you would have thought, that's ice, but it's not ice.
Well, in this, it's crystal, and that's the thing, is it's like, it didn't feel like it was necessarily trying to go massively against the grain. It just sort of threw all the rules out and we're like, no, we're going to do it our own way.
I see what you're saying. Like, I feel like if you did say to someone who didn't play that many games, here are some games to play, and Dark Souls was on the list,
it's always at the end of my list.
It's like the gamble, isn't it? It's like you'll either sink your teeth into this game, as you said, like, or you'll just bounce off it.
That's the thing.
It's the way I look putting
at it.
Dark Souls on a list is your preference absolutely shining through. I think if you do want to compile a list of games that people who had never played games before would love.
No, that's not what I'm saying though. That's not what
But just people who don't play.
It's people who you meet who are like blokes in their early 30s or late 20s who say,
That's quite a specific demographic.
No, I get what you mean.
Because I meet
like-
a lot of these guys now. I meet a lot of these guys who are like, oh, I love video games. I just don't have time to play them anymore. But
That's maybe why you shouldn't say Dark Souls, because it takes a ton of time.
That's why my list is. I always say the ones you've got to play are you've got to play Portal 2, you've got to play Red Dead Redemption, and then I say after that if you're still pining for something, put some hours. Because the thing is,
you
a lot of these blokes they like first person things. I mean, Red Dead is easy because it's like a lot of people have played GTA, a lot of people love GTA, but a lot of these guys would also love Red Dead because they've played so much GTA that they would like it. And I think Red Dead's better than GTA personally.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So it's one of those things where like a lot of them just missed it because it was more of a gamer's game. But if you tell them it's like it's GTA the Wild West and it's really good, most people just go, whoa.
GTA is Red Dead Redemption in New York.
In cars.
Well, it's a game where you can lasso a man off his horse and drag him into town. Just tell them that, and they will want to play that game.
It's true. But I mean, like, do you guys get that a lot at the moment? I get that a lot at the moment. I think
Asking for recommendations.
Asking for recommendations for people who are almost lapsed, and you kind of know that they want a game that's going to be great. They don't just want something to play. They're going to want something like they can only choose a couple of games.
When people ask me that, I get paralyzed, and I'm just like,
when people ask me that, I'm trying to be more forward-looking if I get that question. If people
tell them, like, what you want to do is pre-order.
No, it's if I don't want to point towards Red Dead Redemption and towards the AAA space, I want to point towards Papers, Please. I want to point towards games that aren't what they expect versus...
Yeah, this is different. No, this is different. I mean,
because you look at things like Grand Theft Auto 5, which I would say is one of the best games.
Yeah, I would if we're listing the thing you're talking about, I would name GTA 5 over Red Dead Redemption.
No way.
But even GTA 5, I gave it to my friend to play. He doesn't play many games, and he ran around for a bit. I was like, how do I run? Oh, you hold down the right trigger. How do you sprint? Oh, you tap A. How do I change my weapon? Well, you hold down the left bumper and you move your right. Hang on, what's the left bumper? It's this. It's like, it's impossible to, like, if people don't play games, they are fucking inaccessible.
There's a language there that you just don't get able to talk about.
Absolutely. And it's like,
I wouldn't ever tell anyone to play GTA 5 because that's one of those games where it's like, if they've even got passing interesting games, then they're already all over that.
You're talking about
exactly.
a middle ground of someone who's smart but is also still interested in going for... Someone who's going for the smart edge of the Hollywood AAA space, whereas I'm thinking if you're smart, I would try and eclipse that and go towards what's happening in the indie space, something that gives you more in less time for less money.
At the moment, though, it's just not like accessible enough. And the fact that, like, obviously, like PS4 is really getting behind, like, being a platform for it, and looks like Xbox One is like running behind it, desperately trying to.
We should probably talk about E3.
We'll do that in a minute. Fuck it.
What wouldn't you give to someone who was new to games?
Wolfenstein.
Yeah, well, I definitely wouldn't give that to anyone who was in games at all.
Talk about Wolfenstein. No, I mean, I should probably point out, obviously, this is a podcast that's come out during E3, but I kind of figure that it's like, well, A, none of us are at E3, as is evident by the fact that we're all sitting in my flat. B, like, I mean, we could just speculate on business bollocks and announcements, and there are some things we'd like to talk about, certainly, but at the same time, it's like, well, if you're really interested in E3 news, there's going to be like a fucking ton of it all over the internet.
We won't give them news.
Yeah, we're not going to give bulleted statistics. We're going to say what the real news is.
The real news is...
The real
Splatoon.
Massive headline, Splatoon continued on pages 6, 7, 8, 9 and 14. That's all I want to talk about. Splatoon.
Let's do Splatoon then. Splatoon. Come on.
Oh, that's Splatoon.
Splatoon.
What is Splatoon?
Splatoon came up in the Nintendo conference, and it's being made in-house at Nintendo. It is. If you haven't seen it, you should totally Google the trailer. But broadly, it's a paintball FPS 4-on-4, which is already interesting. Sort of.
Is it an FPS or is it like...
Sorry, it's a third person over the shoulder, because everything at E3 is third person.
PS.
It's a Shakespearean FPS.
No one's ever done that before.
SKS.
We can refine it later and we'll turn it into a real joke.
There'll be a joke there at some point.
So I saw these teams of sort of small girls running around with paintball guns, and I was ready to be unimpressed. Then the game sort of did a series of announcements that everyone hooked me deeper and deeper. The first one, you're not trying to kill each other. The winner is the person who covers more of the battlefield in paint. And I went, oh, okay. And then it said, also, you can turn into a squid and travel really fast in your own team's paint. And I went, what? And then it said, Also, the other team's paint is sort of a very sticky glue and will slow you down. And I just started losing my mind. And the reason why is that not just because this is the kind of game where it's disappointingly rare that a video game comes out where I can get behind it wholeheartedly with no moral questions, because it's just a paint game. It's easy. It's what Nintendo does. But also, when I look at FPSs, I'm always thinking there's something unimaginative about them. Like, you have the unlimited spectrum of video games. We can break any rules.
Create any universe you could.
And what we are creating is war. More war of the style of tanks and planes and guns. And then Splatoon says, no, actually, rather than running to the battlefield, why don't you just be able to jump to any friend? Why don't you be able to hide in your own paint? Why don't you be able to travel really fast or have a roller and run people over with it? It's all the imagination that I want. A, making the game sort of totally family friendly, and B, doing really cool mechanical stuff. Like, there was a point in the trailer I screamed at my girlfriend because it just showed how you can it's just imagine it. It was. I went, oh, because you can shoot through paint really fast. Like, you can travel incredibly fast and swim through the paint. But it showed one scene where someone runs into an arena and someone pops out of the paint, just hiding in the paint.
You can hide. You can hide.
You can just press a button to hide in paint, so you can camp. You can just sit in your own paint and then pop out and shoot someone, which isn't necessarily beneficial because then you're not painting the arena. But then they pointed out other things, like with bullets, you can't see them, which is the dumbest thing in an FPS. Whereas with paint, obviously, if you're about to enter an arena, you see tons of paint spattering across the arena in huge dirty globs.
What to avoid.
You know where the enemy is. It's all slightly more cerebral and slightly more interesting than I would get from a gun game. And it just excited me.
And it's weird because people look at this sort of Nintendo sheen of a take on a third-person multiplayer shooter, and they just think, oh, this is kiddie bullshit. I'm not interested in it.
Yeah,
but as you say, you can see the ammo flying across the battlefield. There is like latency, but not network latency, but gameplay latency.
And anyone who's played Tribes will know that latency on shots is actually a fascinating mechanic and just totally worth doing.
And you can see where the battle's happening, and it's like Nintendo don't come at these things with
wanting to make something for kids. They just want to make something good.
Yes, and they don't come at it from ignorance. They come at it from such a purely game design angle, and that's what I love so much about Nintendo.
I gotta say, the thing that I've really loved about Nintendo's presentation was that I've been watching all of them, obviously, because I'm a fucking prick. But the thing I love about it is the fact that all of the other shows so far is like, it's basically equivalent to someone walking on stage and going, boom! And like helicoptering their dick for
we should say that Nintendo's conference was broadcast. It wasn't on stage.
Which is an honest thing to do, because...
Well, it was about maybe 2 years ago now where they took the decision to go to Nintendo Direct.
What's the fucking point? Like, you got like 500 journalists sitting in LA, and the thing is, I was out in LA last year for E3, and I watched all of the presentations to do my stupid videos. Just I'm doing stupid videos this year, whatever. And I didn't go to the things because it's like, why would I? Like, they're on different sides of LA. Like, why would you get on a bus and have to be in the heat, queuing up, getting inside, to then end up sitting in a place?
Because that's the cool place to be, Matt.
Well, fuck
where all the cool community members are.
You're not a cool kid.
Don't worry.
But again, my girlfriend pointed out something interesting about the Nintendo conference, which was there was a point where someone on the stage at some point talking about some game said, and this is actually huge, they said, oh, we designed this game to make you smile. We wanted this game to put a smile on your face. And you listen to that and you're like, okay, that doesn't... Wait, nobody at the Microsoft and Sony conferences... Doesn't that seem kind of important? It's like, we made this Tom Clancy game to make you smile. No, they made Tom Clancy game to be really high fidelity.
Absolutely. And that's what makes me so upset when people go, oh, I wish Nintendo would go third party and make third party games. Imagine if Nintendo were a third party company. Imagine if they were Ubisoft and they'd have like, here's a new Super Smash Bros. Game announced during the Microsoft conference.
The really weird thing is...
That would be so fucking poisonous the way that they work. It's absolutely...
I hadn't thought about that, but you're kind of right.
Nintendo need to be independent, and they need... I don't give a shit if the Wii U is not selling, if the Wii is a failure. Nintendo
it won't be after the Zelda trailer that they released.
No, I think that's
the
why
Wii U. I didn't see it.
There's this kid, right? There's this kid. He's got a green hat.
I will say
he doesn't even.
The team. It was such a short teaser of what the next generation Wii U 1080p Legend of Zelda game
1080p.
1080p. Brendan, it's going to be 1080p. That's important.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you when I started laughing. Did you say 1080p?
It's 1080p.
1080p.
And don't get me wrong, it's probably going to be 60 FPS as well.
No.
Yeah.
Shit the bed.
10 out of 10.
So you have Anuma talking in front of this luscious landscape and a character on a horse, and he goes, "It's probably Link. That's probably Link." Some concept art in the background.
Oh, you reckon? Yeah, I thought it was a very impressive draw distance.
Well, it appeared to be concept art. I'm about to.
Oh, come on, man! I haven't seen it. Stop spoiling. I thought it was
Ruining everything.
He's talking about how they're making their first open world game, and Zelda games have been semi-open world, like Wind Waker had islands you can visit in any order, and Skyward Sword, and you can always visit things in certain orders. But in this game, they seem to be actually going for an open world game in which you can approach landmarks from any angle. That was the crux of Anuma's of his speech about how you make your decision as to how you're going to approach an objective from the moment you set off.
When you see it at the horizon.
Yes,
right?
and you decide when you're going. Every mountain you can go to that mountain on the horizon, which was the thing that like Elder Scrolls developers were saying a decade ago.
Yeah, actually, when you were saying that, I did think of Skyrim. But the thing with Skyrim is that it's secretly cheap.
Well, the thing about Skyrim and even like The Witcher is a very Western style way of making games, and I don't think a Japanese developer has really fully gone hell for leather and made a Skyrim game.
No, but I wouldn't want them to, because that's just an enormous.
Well, actually, I think it would be really. It'd be really fucking interesting if a Japanese developer made a Elder Scrolls game.
That's why I'm so terrifically excited that Nintendo are making a fucking open world game, and that's like it's the way he was talking about the possibilities of what it would bring to his next Zelda game, and he was saying how yes, as I said, you can approach the objective from any angle. And these are things that are like so way in the back of the heads of Bethesda. Like they've stopped thinking about this. They've started thinking about number of enemies on screen. I don't know. Sorry, I don't want to reduce.
There's an element of autopilot with games on. I think especially if you have a project of a certain scale, and with the fidelity comes that, like you get to a point where it does just become the amount of what you're doing.
But now you're having Nintendo, a Japanese developer, coming at a genre with an absolute 100%. Like blank canvas and going, hang on, what can we do if we create an open world? What can Nintendo do if we create an open world Zelda game? And they're not going to fall back on tropes. They're not going to do things where you see, Watch Dogs has made an open world game. It's Grand Theft Auto that's fucking pared down to nothing. They're going to come at it with 100% their own ideas.
Yeah,
they will not rely on popular successes of the past. They're going to create something that's completely new, completely original, and fucking mind-blowing.
It will be fascinating no matter how good it is.
And when we're going back to seeing that man the Japanese man talking in front of that scene, he faded away and that scene came to life.
Yes.
A fucking big spider monster started blasting lasers everywhere in this fully animated cutscene.
Yeah.
And that genuinely speak, almost brought me to tears. As a Nintendo fan, I was like, "Shit, this is next gen. Gen Zelda." And
you know what? I almost didn't even watch the Nintendo thing, and I'm so glad I did, because I was like, "Whoa, this is like." The only thing that made me sad is it felt very much like it probably felt like a victory to many, but it felt like it's definitely people like me who are Nintendo fans but have been very much struggling to find a reason why they're ever going to buy a Wii U. Have got on board, but I just don't know how many other people will be.
Well, the wonderful thing is Nintendo don't give a shit.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Who cares?
Well, I guess it matters at some point, and I know it's a thing of like they have got a lot of money to sit on. They fritter their money away, but at some point it's going to have to matter. I just worry them about. I don't worry about them.
Nintendo have enough money.
In an avuncular manner.
I do. I kind of like. I'm not like, Nintendo are going to fail because they made bad decisions.
Nintendo, they have enough money to fail 4 or 5 consoles in a row.
I think
they have the most capital of any games company.
But that just means that their losses are less than every other games company.
Yeah, but they've got like, and they have always been experimental. Like, we forget like how much of an insane failure the Virtual Boy was. Like,
You know, it's funny though. You don't. To continue from what we're saying, you don't quite realize how drab Microsoft in particular has become until you see Nintendo doing their thing again.
I fucking realized how drab.
I find actually this is good. This is good. I can share this with you. But I feel like sitting here with you doing this makes me feel happy and makes me reminds me that I do actually like games, because I do find that E3 generally does. It used to be excitement, but now it does. I do find it saps me.
Well, I think we've had the most exciting E3 in a number of years.
No, E3.
I think the last year was pretty exciting, but that was because there was this weird power play between Xbox and Sony that everybody made a big deal of, and fair enough, it needed to be a big deal made of, and it was a kind of consumer war that they were waging with each other.
It was interesting.
There isn't anything like that this year.
This year, it's just the games.
Yeah,
which is fine. By
which is fine. Which is also what they need to do now. Is what
I should also caveat that the only conferences I've seen so far have been the Nintendo Direct, which actually I thought was fantastic. It's probably the best thing I've seen so far. The Microsoft one, which I thought was incredibly boring, and the EA one. I haven't actually had a chance to see the other ones yet.
The Sony one.
No.
Sony, so Sony was quite late. I was asleep.
It was 2 in the morning.
I stayed up for that one.
Did you stay up for it? So what was the footnotes of the Sony?
I watched the highlights, but
I'm really trying to remember what was in it. I remember seeing Little Big Planet 3 and being tremendously underwhelmed because
I'm a big Little Big Planet fan.
Oh, really? I was in at the ground level of Little Big Planet because I was living with a friend at the time who, hi Chris, still love you, who was really excited about the concept of Little Big Planet. We played it and we went through the whole single player campaign co-op and it was fine.
God, you got through a whole single player campaign?
Oh, yes, because
some of that was bollocks.
You needed to unlock all the fabrics.
I think it was.
I think it was okay, but the thing is, then
it was standard.
He was really excited about making all the single player levels, and when the designer or it was some Sony executive came on and said, you know, I like that Little Big Planet 3 is going to let you play all the cool levels from 1 and 2. That's awesome. But it's necessary because when he said, we've made 7.3 million levels in Little Big Planet, or whatever the number was, it was around there. I knew, I was saying aloud to the room at the time, 6.4 million of those levels are people who've made a level, gone, oh, I'll put a thing here, oh, fuck this. Because I made that, my friend made that, I'm sure tons of reviewers
I'm
made
pretty
that.
sure I
a blank
made that.
level with a ball that falls on your head.
Yeah, exactly. No. But Little Big Planet's still kind of worth it for buying it and seeing what the top 0.01% is made. Because they make wacky stuff. Like I remember playing all of Ico and Little Big Planet Form in about 5 minutes, which was great.
It's amazing. The things that people make in it, like someone remade Final Fantasy VII.
Oh wow, I haven't played that one.
Really?
It's just mad.
You're
Like
joking.
people do
it's in
incredible
reduced,
things.
it's in like
with it.
chibi form, but it's
Oh
there.
yeah, like you've got here's the Shinra level, here's this level, here's this
I
level.
thought you meant the whole game.
No, but it's still
It's like-
really
they rushed
impressive
through it.
craftsmanship.
What was the other things what were the other things
At the
to be
Sony-
grammatically correct at
to
the
be-
Sony?
I'm honestly
Uncharted, they've got a new Uncharted.
There was the Order, which looked like a cool third-person game where you can shoot a werewolf with a gun.
Oh, delightful.
It honestly looked. I was looking at that, and that was probably the most good-looking thing I saw. That had just astonishing lighting effects and really nice. Walls were a bit wet. You could see.
I found it really funny with
I love
the
wet
fact
walls.
that I in one of my weekly kind of update videos, I had a brief thing where I sort of went out of nowhere. I was like, I find it a bit weird how like everyone thinks that 60 frames per second needs to be the standard when like in film and television we use different frames like to give different feels, and it's like it's something it's inherently because
Which is
of
an
what we've done in the
interesting
past, but it's something that like, and then literally about 4 days later there was this whole hurrah because then the order came out and we're like, yeah, we're doing 30 frames a second because we want like better visuals and a certain feel, and it was like, oh shit, like, that was relevant.
the 60 FPS thing and the 1080 thing. So it's bizarre. This new standards come out in console games where they're like, oh, we're going to hit 60 FPS and we're going to do 1080p. And people are getting obsessed about
I'm
it.
very skeptical about who cares.
And on people who
can
on the opposite
tell?
side going, oh, who actually cares about it? And like, who can tell the difference in 30 frames a second?
Well, you
60
can tell the difference,
It's like,
right, yeah.
hang on. Anyone who's been playing PC games for the last 20, 30 years knows the difference between 30 FPS and 60 FPS. It's very obvious.
But it doesn't. It's obvious, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. No, you can
I
have
think
you can
it's-
have a game at playing at 30 FPS and that's playable. That's fine.
I think it's all about having consistency, frankly.
If you speak to a PC gamer who played PC games throughout the 90s, I think when when tech was advancing very quickly and steadily. I think PC tech has stagnated with this generation of consoles.
Absolutely.
So if you bought a PC 6 years ago, it's still going to run every game that's coming out right now.
Yeah.
But back in the 90s, I think
You get left behind so quickly.
2 years ago, if your PC is 2 years old, it's dead. It's just not running anything. But you can play games at 16 frames a second, and that's like that's like borderline the limit.
The thing is, like, I feel like people like you, Matt, and people, other people on YouTube who make videos and stuff, like, would notice the frames per second issue a lot more than any other just average gamer, because you have to make videos.
Yeah,
and you have to think about those options, and you have to think about what goes into.
It shouldn't be dismissed
like,
as
what you export basically whenever you're clicking that button.
I think it's I think it's like it's an issue at the moment. The fact that really. I think it's quite interesting. You can't. YouTube doesn't support 60 frames a second. The only sites that actually have 60 frames per second are sites with.
No, sorry, that is boring. Should we move on to the next thing?
What else was in the Sony conference?
No Man's Sky was probably in the
No Man's Sky was the same
Sony
footage of No
conference?
Man's Sky we've seen before.
No, it wasn't.
No, it was new.
It was new, but it did the same
It
kind
was
of
still a
thing.
ship leaving a place with a dinosaur.
I tell you what.
What do you do in No Man's Land?
No Man's Sky.
No Man's-
No Man's-
I don't know.
Obviously, you've seen the footage.
I've seen it. I have.
Well, so I played a... Okay,
and also,
this takes
I
me-
love Hello Games.
I played a game...
They're a personal pet favorite of mine.
Okay, cool. So I played a game, PC freeware, called Noctis, I think, when I was probably about 12. And if anyone remembers this from listening to the podcast, I good on you, and definitely give me a link, because I couldn't link you to it. But Noctis was a game which randomly generated a galaxy and let you fly around on a ship and land on a planet, which was sort of this horrific voxel black and white thing. And maybe if you were really lucky, you would find life, which was randomly generated. So you'd find a weird two-legged rabbit and you'd go, oh my God, and you'd send screenshots to your friends. And that was fine. That was enough. I mean, what do you do in Minecraft? If all you do in Minecraft is build a sort of capitalist home, then if all you do in No Man's Sky is explore a place and take readings, and if all the creatures are randomly generated, I'd be very happy taking photos.
I mean,
Pokemon
can you
Snap,
imagine what Minecraft's E3 trailer would have been if they had such a thing? If they had to advertise it like that,
right?
What would it have been, and how excited would you have been about it?
It would be.
You would look at it and go, "That looks like bollocks."
Yeah,
No, I know exactly what it would be. It would be someone walking through a forest, and it would demonstrate them taking a log out of a tree, and then the music would swell, and they would turn around, and you would see a quarry with a village. That
There would be a time lapse build of a cabin.
But people would still look at it and go, "It's in stupid blocks."
I would be interested.
Why isn't it like beautifully like curved?
No, I think at the time when it came out, I would be interested to check it out. But I mean, like, it came up very slowly in the exact opposite way than any game coming out of E3 does.
I am full of trepidation for No Man's Skies, though. No Man's Sky.
I'm a little nervous.
I spoke to Sean Murray from Hello Games before. Actually, before No Man's Sky was announced, and it's not even interesting, but it was codenamed Skyscraper. And that was the thing.
That's it. That's good, because it's a ship and it scrapes.
Yes, so there you go. And I was speaking to him about because I think they just released Joe Danger 2 for PC, and they bundled it with loads of Joe Danger 1 stuff. So I was talking to him, and they're based in Guildford, which is they're UK developers, which means they're really sort of close to our hearts, because you can talk to them and they speak to you like they're human people. Which is like no.
And I'm sure American developers would as well, but we don't see them outside of very strict work.
Absolutely, yeah. So I know them quite well, and I lived. Disclaimer. I used to live with one of the developers of
Hello Games, I didn't, and I know them a bit, but I'm exactly the same. I spent time with Hello. They're very fond.
What he was saying was that he's just disappointed that what happens when next gen consoles comes out is that they spend all of the extra processing power on more polygons, more shaders, more graphical fidelity, when in fact what these consoles are allowing you to do is so much more than that. Like, forget graphics, processing power, being able to process a lot of information at once, being able to procedurally create planets and worlds and space and ships and monsters and creatures. That's what he was interested in. And this is Sean Murray, basically a head design dude at Hello Games. That's what he's interested in doing.
So the thing that simultaneously made me excited but also nervous is that it was mentioned in the E3 shadow that in No Man's Sky, every player will start on their own planet. And when you log into the game, a planet will be created that's just yours, and you'll be able to explore it and fly away and tell people about it, presumably. But then I'm thinking to myself, if that's your initial of the experience of the game, if they're confident enough that you're going to get a planet that's pretty cool, that immediately strips me of a lot of my excitement in a game about exploration, because there's a certain threshold of excitement that players need to be provided, which made me think, like, no one's going to spawn on a shithole.
I think that you might, but that's fine, because I honestly think it's one of those games where, like, and this is what I like about it, is that it doesn't need to be like trying to be like, and you've got the active reload and you've got the squad system.
I think it's the problem with procedural generated games. Well, it's like Spore. No one was interested in Spore in the amoeba stage when you're going around chomping on other fucking multi-cells organisms. Like, they want to get to the point where everyone else is at. They want to get to the point where you are seeing other civilizations.
So you're saying you'll spawn on wherever, but then you'll get in your ship and you'll fly off and see.
Because when you go to NeoGAF or you go to Reddit, you're going to see everyone talking about, oh, here's this awesome thing that's happening up here in space. You're going to spawn on a planet. You're going to go, I don't give a shit about being on this planet. I want to be where the internet culture says that this game is at its best.
Even if you spawn on a planet that is... The thing is, how do you tell if you spawn on a planet that's hugely interesting or hugely not interesting?
Well, in the trailer...
You've just... Well, yeah...
Presumably the trailer is the pinnacle of excitement.
By this E3 trailer, which has, like, large neck dinosaurs and stuff in it, and huge rhino-like creatures and all this mad things. It's a really, really busy trailer, and a lot is going on.
Yeah.
If you spawn on that planet, you the thing is, like, how quickly do you get tired of that? Either way...
I don't think... Sorry, go ahead.
Either way, if you land on that, or if you start on that planet, or you start on a planet that's basically a bog with one beetle crawling around.
That's what I want from my game.
If you spawn on that planet, the difference is how quickly you get tired of it and leave. You know, it's not the difference of the game. You know, you're going to leave sooner or later.
Yeah, because I think the problem is you're thinking about that in the context of it being a game where you have to do like 3 or 4 hours worth of missions before you get your spaceship.
I don't think it's a game.
I'm thinking about it in the context of a game that Sony are putting front and center, and there's a certain amount of QA pessimism that I've got where I don't think they will ship a game where players will spawn on an icy shithole, which is totally boring and has no features.
Yeah, it's
weird.
weird.
It's necessary in exploration games.
It's weird. Like, there's a lot of expectation about it because it's like, oh, look at this amazing game.
And similarly, it is stupid for me to be discussing why I'm nervous about it when I know so little.
Like, so much of even what we've talked about just now is rampant speculation. And we don't know a fucking thing.
Throwing the dice on being right about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think
it's what's interesting about a procedural game like that is that you cannot make a trailer. You can't make a trailer to sell it.
They have made a trailer to sell it.
They have, because they had to, because it's the realities of how video games work, and the reality of how Sony man calls up and say, "Hey, we really like everyone's excited about your game. Make a trailer for us. We're going to show it at E3.
Fill it with dinosaurs."
They're not going to go. Nah. No, our game doesn't really work like that. Sorry, bye. No.
Sorry, bye, Mr. Sony.
Bye, Mr. Sony. No, they make a trailer and they make it look like it's exciting and good fun.
Yeah, so I guess they just keep loading up planets until they find one that goes, that looks cool.
Yes, yeah, but it's like, so I've been playing Alien Isolation.
Yeah.
Which in its levels are very... You play as Ripley's daughter on a space station.
Hasn't Ripley's children been removed?
No.
No, I'm not going to explain this one.
They were killed by... I don't fucking know.
You're thinking of the other one, Newt.
In Alien Resurrection, she's like, where are my kids? And the answer is, your kids have been...
Sorry.
Go on. If you can do it in
explain
20
this?
seconds.
Because this is something I don't understand.
Ripley's daughter, she was told in Aliens, the movie, that her daughter had died ages ago of old age. She was shown a picture of her. She was shown a picture of her of the daughter really, really old. And then she went and she brought up Newt, and it was basically
surrogate. Surrogate, but yes.
The thing behind Alien Isolation is that her daughter is alive as a young person, so we don't know.
Surviving the aliens.
We don't know. She's told basically this has something to do with this mission that we're going to send you on has something to do with your mother. we don't know if you, as the protagonist in isolation, survive to the end of the game or not.
Well, yeah,
because what the company tells Ripley at the beginning of Aliens is questionable because they just want her to go on the mission, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, no. The idea that the company show Ripley of Aliens a photograph of her old dead daughter, that in no way precludes her daughter being in a video game.
Yeah.
Throughout the expanse of her age.
No, it's fine. She could have been
at least 60, 70 years of age.
We're probably all going to be in a video game.
We're all going to die and be in video games.
I think that's the future, really. We all get our 15 minutes in a video game.
Because the point I was going to make was that it's difficult when you have a procedurally generated game where you can't predict what the elements are going to do. It's difficult to create a trailer that really captures what it's going to do. Like, you can't make a Minecraft trailer. You can't make a trailer of a game where the experience is all of your own making.
Well, that's the thing. It was ridiculous. I mean, I literally, as I say, I'm behind on the conferences, but I just watched the EA one today to make the video for it, and it's like the fucking EA Hardpoint or Hardline. The Hardline trailer is like, come on, guys, this is silly. Like,
wait, that's the Battlefield
Cops and Robbers, but it's like it's choreographed to the point of being like, it's not just like, it's just silly.
Oh, can we talk about how
they all are though?
How good
but that was dumb. It was
I played the beta of that, so that trailer really fucking sold me, and I thought that looks amazing. That looks like it's a really good point-to-point game where the cops and the robbers are both moving towards objectives at the same time.
Yeah.
But I played the beta, and that's not how it works. That's actually not how it works.
So it's there's a misleading trailer.
There's one open map that the burglars, the bad men can move towards the enemy vault at any time, individually or with a team if they like, grab money and go back to their own vault. It's basically capture the flag, where you're just pulling money out of a thing and going and running back to the capture point.
I will always talk about this, but you know what? It actually has really good bank robberies. Is Kane and Lynch 2? It has astonishing,
very good
multiplayer.
Just let it go.
Okay. I did have an E3 point I did want to make was how awesome is this convention of multiplayer trailers with hilariously sanitized dialogue between them?
Yeah, oh my god, the Rainbow Six trailer where they were so polite to each other.
Sally, enter the room via the window.
Oh my god, I'm going to breach up here. Are you guys ready?
Sally,
we've been ready for you for a while. I'm sorry, don't worry about it. No, really, I apologize. Honestly, we're all friends here. I'm breaching.
Yes, I'm multicultural friends.
What the fuck?
I'm going to have a lot of fun with that, I think.
I think Ubisoft do a really good line in like uncannily good acting for like voice chat, but just does not quite meld with the reality of what voice chat's like.
Have they ever played an online game in their whole life? Like Assassin's Creed, like I was saying this to you earlier, Quinns, the Assassin's Creed game where they showed a 4-player game. I don't know if they showed it during the conference or like in a trailer afterwards, but it was where 4 players joined, or 3 other players joined, and they were all had the same target. It was the Maquis or something. And they were all going after him, but they were like shooting some guards to get the civilians of the revolution to storm the gates of the palace.
Which I think, by the way, is a cool feature of Assassin's Creed.
Right, cool if it isn't like incredibly scripted and very, very, very questionable at this stage. But there's a bit where all 4 of the players storm this party basically of like aristocrats, and they all slice up these guards and they all get in there and they get into fights and stuff, and the Marquis is running away and he's trying doors, and they all kind of gang up on the Marquis and they kind of all saunter towards him very slowly, very menacingly, and it's a very cinematic like ending where all 4 players who are all playing together online on the internet, just like you, just like your friends, all rounding on this one guy, and you're just thinking, I was just sitting there thinking, no, that's not how online games work. Online games work. Somebody is going to jump down there and go for the Marquis straight away and just end it and give us a cutscene, and I'm going to think, what the hell was I doing that whole
In their defense, and I don't really believe this, but when I played Dark Souls 2, my online experience is walking towards the people I invade as slowly as possible. And I think I've mentioned that on Dark Souls before. But yeah,
Dark Souls is very different.
It absolutely is.
The thing is, yeah, you're right, because that's the problem is it gives you these experiences where you're aware of what everyone else is doing, when actually the reality is often like you're just in a room and suddenly a cutscene triggers because somebody knows what they're doing.
Has run to the
It's
mission
already
point.
like way ahead of you, and then it's like over, and you're like, what happened?
Yeah, I mean, what are the chances that they didn't kill the marquee first?
Yeah, it may be that they've gamed it some way and that they've given like the other three, say, invaders or something of somebody's world, another objective, which is to clear the room or something like that. Maybe they've done something.
Well,
I don't know.
It's not like,
but I don't know if if they've done that or not. And
it's not like
again speculation.
It's not like Ubisoft to lie in E3.
Can we also talk about whether or not we're excited, but as long as we're on Ubi on the Ubi train to Ubi Town. Ubi Town is a great place to be. The Rainbow Six house,
Which is fucking awesome.
Right? Do we like that?
Yes,
we do. The amount of trailers. I was talking to Brendan about this earlier. The amount of trailers in E3. Oh, do you not?
I've not
Rainbow
actually watched it
Six,
yet.
not Patriots, because that was a game that they cancelled. Rainbow
It's
Six.
weird. It's yet more 4-on-4 multiplayer, which showed 4 terrorists in a house trying to protect a hostage and 4 terrorists storming it in a Rainbow Six.
In the most perfect ever game ever to have happened.
Yes, but what I'm just curious because I didn't know what other people's feelings were because I watched it, but I'm also thinking I don't have the friend network that all these game companies seem to be assuming I have. All of them seem to be assuming I have 3 friends who play video games.
3 friends, full stop.
At the same, and I don't. Not after I.
No, you're right, and I feel
ones.
the same way in the fact that it's this weird thing at the moment with there's a massive obsession with 4-player co-op and everything on the main consoles.
And obviously, 4-player co-op in, like, say, Borderlands is amazing, but the amount I'm seeing how many games involve it, and it's like I'm gonna have to make friends,
I think
dedicated console friends, and we play.
Yes,
I mean, I guess
the
they
thing
wanna...
that games developers need to be doing is to make games where you can have 4-way co-op because people enjoy doing, but making it mutually beneficial for everyone to cooperate.
Yeah,
I think that it's more the problem for me is the fact that it's like it's always been the past that video games have always been aimed tonally at 15, 16-year-olds. Like that's just the way that video games have always been. But now it's like it's becoming a logistical requirement. Because it's like to get the most out of these games, you have to be in that period in your life. In the same way that I never got into Halo 2. My brother got into Halo 2 because he was 15 and he had friends and they were all playing on Xbox Live. I was past that. I was like 19. My friends were all going off and doing stuff. Like I was 18, 19. It was all moving on. And yeah, it's basically like I worry now that I can't do that. Like I don't, as you say, I don't. And there's also, it's not just having friends. I have lots of friends who like games, but lots of friends who like games who will have that game.
It took a lot of effort for me to play Monster Hunter, and it took a lot of effort for you and me to get into Dota, but we're willing to make that effort, I think, when the game is right. The problem is,
you can't do it for every game.
There were 15 games at E3, and they all look pretty good, and I'll need 4 friends to play all of them. But I guess it'll come out in the wash, because if a game is really strong, my Twitter sort of connections and my online infrastructure means that I'll have friends who say, oh, this is the one of those 18 over-the-shoulder shooting games for 4 players that you should be
really
playing. Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I just feel like it's nice if you can have it as an addition that is fun. But often, if they're made around that, I worry because I'm not always going to want to play games like that. I find it quite immersive. Like the problem is, like, it's nice when you can play with friends who are going to appreciate the fact that they don't want to ruin your experience. But most of the time, when you're just playing with random people online, which is what you have to do if you're just playing, like, either somebody just pops into a room and starts throwing slurs at you and swearing randomly, or it's just somebody who more politely gets irritated you don't know what you're doing, or worse.
Well, I just don't like playing multiplayer games. I'm not a fan of.
I love multiplayer games, but I go into multiplayer games.
I think
to play them,
that's an audience that still exists.
I
just don't like.
You know, honestly, I'm looking at this generation of consoles, and I'm thinking when I buy a PS4, I'm honestly going to make better friends with people who own PS4s, so that reliably we can go online and play games together. Because I think that seems to be where this generation is.
I still haven't seen a game that's going to make me buy a
not
PS4.
Rainbow Six House scripted.
Not Rainbow Six
friends.
Siege.
Siege. Good work.
No, I don't. Well, nah.
Be on my
No Man's
Splatoon
Sky.
team.
No Man's Sky. If it, well, yeah, I'm worried. But if it looks as good as I hope I want it to be, then I might and
don't know,
might
it's-
splash out, and even then, you know.
It's more the fact that I feel like a lot of these games, they can program them with 4 players, but I think that they can't program for the fact that some people are going to know what they're doing. And I still remember the weirdest thing when I kind of thought, like, I got towards the end of the original Crackdown on the Xbox, and I was like, I'm almost at the end. I thought, sod it, you know what? I'm going to open it up to co-op, random co-op, let people into my game, and maybe they'll just go around like helping me sweep up some of the missions. And maybe they'll just like do stuff that will help me complete the game.
Yeah.
And then I went to the toilet, right? Like at one point, I had some guy he was in my game, didn't know where he was, just hadn't seen him. Guy joined my game, don't know where he was. He was just off doing something. I was like, fuck it, whatever. Went to the toilet, came back from the toilet, and the credits were rolling. I literally like
He'd finished the game for you.
he'd finished the game, like, and it was so annoying because it meant that I then had to like go and watch the ending of the game on YouTube.
That's fucking stupid.
Because I wasn't in the room.
I don't think that we've fully figured out how people should play games together.
Nothing is more evidence for that than Assassin's Creed multiplayer, the online deathmatchy multiplayer.
Oh, you mean
No, I
like
think
the
that's
old
good,
Brotherhood stuff?
Yeah, all the
the
player versus player online competitive stuff.
It's a really good
I
evolution
quite
of
liked,
how,
like,
yeah.
I quite liked how they began that.
No, it's really strong, but it's let down by players. It's not. It doesn't.
Yeah, people
Yeah,
just run
it is
around
let
like
down.
nuts.
It is let down whenever everybody in the match just runs and goes for the next person.
Yeah, which
Like,
is
when
like,
everybody breaks the game, it becomes broken. But if you even get like half the people who are playing it correctly and hiding and following like the the rules.
I think that's the
so
problem
to
is
speak.
most multiplayer games are spoiled by people.
No, you're right.
This is again
It's an
what I'm
issue.
talking about. Give me I'm going to make that harem of PS4 friends, and we're all going to play.
I
online
think
games
what makes me
together.
sad about it is it feels like now.
But I'm like that. I'm like, if you can't see Quinns, if you can't see me, if you can't see my face and my voice, I'm going to be an arsehole and I'm going to fuck up everything that you try
This
to
is
do.
why I ended up starting a board game site. I do get that, and
The anonymity of the internet just affords me the ability to be an absolute arsehole.
But I wonder if the multiplayer thing is a marketing decision. The fact that I think that lots of people have realised that now the big money with the games and the consoles is about these little networks of friends. It's no longer just about appealing to 15-year-olds. The reason that Call of Duty is so big, and the reason that Call of Duty and Xbox are so linked, like it's almost like attached to the spine of the thing, is the fact that they know that it's not just about people buying it to play it, they're buying it to play it online with their friends.
yeah.
And it's like, but I just feel it's weird because now it's like this, they've almost given up with the whole competitive mode that you can also play. Like it used to be like you get a single player game.
It's
and
not
it'll be
even like
competitive mode.
with their friends, because I don't think that was... Because multiplayer gaming came about on the PC in like the mid-90s, where like you can go on Quake and you can play Quake online and you can fight. That was never with friends. That was just the idea of shooting another person in the head. Was
You will appreciate. I mean, you'll admit that playing a game with your friends is always better. It's why games publishers, if they're doing a multiplayer event, will always sit the journalists in the same room in a LAN party because it's incredible. And I think with just a small amount of extra admin in our lives to do with playing games online at the same time with a dedicated group of friends, you could improve the experience. And if that's where
I used to be into it. Like, I remember when I think it was Modern Warfare 2, there was like a point where I was working in an office. There weren't that many guys there. It was about 8 guys. And like, I remember it was like about 7 out of 8 of us had Modern Warfare 2 and an Xbox. And it'd be this thing of we'd say in the office, we'd say, oh, we can play some Call of Duty tonight. And then we wouldn't always necessarily all be playing together, but it was the fact we were all on, you'd invite someone in. And I remember there was one guy in the office who didn't have an Xbox. He always just seemed really bummed out. And that's how they get you. Like, it's the fact like... It's
I don't
like,
know, but I don't think the average person has all these friends who play the game on the same platform that he has.
I think honestly, with like teenagers now, that's what it's absolutely about. And I would not be surprised if there are kids.
Fuck teenagers. I have no interest in what they want.
Well, me neither.
If
But
you're a teenager, fuck you.
that's the
No, come on now, Steve.
Sit still.
Stand up.
Sit still for 5 years and come back to me when you're a non-teenager. Honestly, you are worth nothing.
That's very mean.
That's
But,
cruel.
If teenagers play Splatoon, I'm into it. I'll play Splatoon.
I'll play Splatoon as a teenager.
That's the creepiest.
Do you want to play Splatoon with teenagers?
How good is it going to be if I've got my Wii U and I've got my Splatoon and I go online and I'm like,
Yeah.
I join a team and I'm like on voice calls, hey guys, how's it going? oh, Misty, you're rather old to be playing with us. And I'll just leave the server.
You know that's going to be
CIA.
That's going to be the McCarthy trials of the 2020s. It's going to be have you ever been a player of Splatoon with teenagers? You creep.
It's the Quinton Splatoon pyramid scandal.
I'm sorry to teenagers. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you've calmed down now.
Yeah, I've calmed down. Right. I got angry at teenagers. I'm sorry. I used to be one.
No.
I'm angry at myself, really. That's what's going on.
It's okay. We've opened up here in this Daft Souls.
We have all been up there. And yeah, that's it for this week's Daft Souls. No questions this week because you would have just asked us like questions about E3
and we
answered all of them.
Yeah.
We answered them. We answered all of them without you even knowing. And you probably would have just asked something. I mean, people would have asked things like, which is better, Xbox or Sony? And it's like, they're both fucking boring.
Well, Sony.
It's obviously Sony, but it's still, legit better. God, Microsoft was boring. I'm never going to own an Xbox again. I was so bored.
Sony's got that 1080p.
1080p.
Yeah.
The Caribbean seas and
60
all the hot mummies.
What an amazing rap.
Right, that's it. Has anyone got anything they would like to plug before they leave? Like a hole in the wall?
Regular Features.
Yeah, listen to Regular Features.
Google Regular Features. It's the best podcast that there is.
It is the best podcast. Also, we've Shuts It Down, obviously. We've got 2 members. 3 members. 3 members.
You are also a member of
I forget that I'm a member of Shuts It Down. We've just
I've look at my article I wrote.
You are also a member of Times.
We're all
Steve wrote
members
a
of.
fantastic article for Shut Up Sit Down recently. What was it about, Steve?
It's about a real-life urban zombie survival horror game called 2.8 Hours Later.
It's very good. I enjoyed reading that.
The longest plug in the world.
Blah, 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 blah. Fuck it. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
And we'll hopefully see you next week.
Bye.
Goodbye.